Spread the word with your neighbors and your family and your coworkers and your friends. Spread the word. You're the Paul and Paulette Revere. So this would be one of the occasions, really, when you want to raise the volume on your radio or your iPhone or whatever mobile device you may have, or on your computer, depending on how you're listening, because I'm going to dissect this as only I can, and much of it will be repeated tomorrow. So here's Pelosi on Fox News Sunday. Hat tip, real clear politics, cut to, go.
So we have to recognize that. Which cuts really help us and which cuts hurt our future. And cuts in education, scientific research, and the rest are harmful, and they are what are affected by the sequestration. So it is almost a false argument to say we have a spending problem. We have a budget deficit problem that we have to address.
If she were working in the private sector, she would have been indicted, I have no doubt convicted, and be serving time in the federal pen. If she were a CEO of some small company. And she's caused much of this problem, as have many. Now let me break this down step by step. Congress and the President have knowingly subverted their own legal budgetary requirements under the 1974 Budget Act. Under the 1974 Budget Act. This is an act that they passed to apply to themselves. It's actually called the Congressional Budget and Impoundment Control Act of 1974, if you must know. Completely ignored it for over 4 years now. And the reason they've completely ignored it is because they don't want to set out their spending priorities. They want to spend on everything, except defense and national security. But they don't want to have appropriations bills. They don't want to have the normal procedures for the Congress, go through various hearings. In other words, they want to keep you in the dark. And they want to keep spending. And they want to keep lying about it. So let's go through some facts. Some facts. Now, I know they say numbers on radio don't work, but you're smart people. This is the smartest audience in all of media. For fiscal operations alone, in other words, I'm not counting unfunded liabilities like entitlements programs. For fiscal operations alone, yearly budgets. In 2002, I just took that as a random marker. The federal government spent a little over $2 trillion. 10 years later, in 2012, the federal government spent $3.79 trillion, almost 100%. 10 years later. That's crazy. As a percentage of the gross domestic product, that is, all the goods and services that you produce in the private sector, federal spending just for fiscal operations, not unfunded liabilities, is historically sky high. In 2002, federal outlays as a percentage of the economy were 19.1%. Last year, they were 24.3% of GDP. 5.2% higher. I want you to think about that. That's enormous. I'm not saying the percentage increase was 5.2%. It was much higher than that. Much higher than that. So whereas it was about 20 cents out of a dollar, now it's about 25 cents out of every dollar in just 10 years. More. Federal deficits for fiscal operations. Again, I'm not even talking about unfunded liabilities for Social Security, Medicare, and so forth. They've increased astronomically. In 2002, the federal government incurred a budget deficit of $157 billion. 10 years later, last year, 2012, $1.32 trillion. Over $1 trillion more yearly federal deficit. See, we don't have a spending problem, according to Pelosi. We just have a budget problem. In 2002, the federal debt as a percentage of gross domestic product, yet again, putting aside entitlements, was 58.8% of the entire economy. Last year, it was over 100%, 104.8%. The federal debt for fiscal operations right now is just shy of $16.5 trillion. 4 years ago, it was $10.7 trillion. About a $6 trillion shift in 4.5 years. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. That means every taxpayer is on the hook for $111,000. And yet the average income in America is $51,000. Again, without even counting the unfunded liabilities, which is the biggest part of the spending. Now, simply making the interest payments on this debt will be overwhelming. The Congressional Budget Office projects that the government's yearly net interest spending will more than triple between 2011 and 2021 from $225 billion to $800 billion a year. Just on the interest. And imagine if the interest goes up substantially, ladies and gentlemen, due to inflation. And I'll get to that next. It'll be far more than $800 billion a year. This is the future we're creating for our children. This is why I'm not going to watch Obama. This is the man who has his foot on the gas pedal. And he's going to go on and on and on about a balanced approach and go on and on and on about we need more revenue. There's not enough revenue in the entire universe to accommodate this man and his agenda. The total, now let's get to it, the total unfunded liability of Medicare as of last year was $42.8 trillion. Where is that going to come from? Nowhere. Nowhere. The annual report of the Board of Trustees, that oversees Medicare, they have said that this is unsustainable. Unsustainable. The total unfunded liability of Social Security as of last year was $20.5 trillion. The trustees for Social Security, these are government people. They said it's absolutely unsustainable. Where are Obama's proposals? There are none. Total, now listen to this, total obligations by the federal government. That is the accumulated debt from yearly fiscal operations plus the net present value of all unfunded liabilities. So the yearly amounts that are spent on government operations plus these massive entitlement programs amounts to nearly $90 trillion. The real yearly deficits, when you account all of this debt, in 2011, $4.6 trillion. Yearly. Last year, $6.9 trillion. Trillion. Last year in 2012, actually December, the Government Accountability Office issued its own warning. The Government Accountability Office. Having conducted a number of reviews of the federal government's fiscal condition, it reported, and I quote, "The GAO's simulations continue to illustrate that the federal government is on an unsustainable long-term fiscal path. In both the baseline extended and alternative simulations, debt held by the public grows as a share of gross domestic product over the long term, while the timing and pace of growth varies depending on the assumptions used. Neither set of assumptions achieves a sustainable path." We use this word unsustainable. Do you know what that means in the context of a society and an economy? It means a crash. It means a total unraveling. Whether it's the Social Security trustees, whether it's the Medicare and Medicaid trustees, whether it's the General Accounting Office, whether it's the Congressional Budget Office, whether it's anybody and everybody who's seriously taking a look at this, they're all saying the same thing. Warning, warning, disaster ahead. And Nancy Pelosi says on Sunday, we don't have a spending problem. And Obama will say tomorrow night, full speed ahead, foot on the gas pedal, that this is a balanced approach. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Bipartisanship? Why would you make nice with a president who's trying to destroy so much of what you believe in? Why don't you just oppose him? Ladies and gentlemen, the only way there will be cuts in this budget, and by cuts I mean minuscule cuts, really tweaking what's going on, if you listen to the first hour, is through this sequester. There won't be any other quote-unquote cuts under this president. This is it. And he already wants to destroy the United States military. That's a fact. Any Republican who doesn't support the sequester, as bad as it is for the military, and I'm very sorry about that, but you can thank John Boehner and all the other Republicans who supported this. We can't turn back from this. The Democrats are demanding more tax increases. If the Democrats could turn the private sector into the public sector tomorrow, they would do it. And people ask me all the time, why? Don't they see what's going on? Because, ladies and gentlemen, it's about power and money. The Democrats do not become more powerful and do not win elections by promoting liberty and private property rights and capitalism. They can't win elections that way. They're the party of government. And government needs the Democrat Party to continue to feed itself and its insatiable appetite. As I've said, they're one and the same. They're inseparable. That's why the Democrat Party is never going to change course. And rather than seeking bipartisan solutions, rather than negotiating with this, by God, for once, just say no.
Mark Levin.
When will the Republicans stand up? I know what to expect from Obama and his party. I really do. Obama's the enemy of liberty, the enemy of capitalism, the enemy of the Constitution, politically speaking, obviously. But that's what he is. When is the last time the president spoke a paragraph's worth of words about liberty, about individual sovereignty? When is the last time the President of the United States spoke a paragraph of words, not just a throwaway sentence, about the magnificence of free market capitalism? Oh, yes, he mentions it when he is promoting the opposite. I believe in capitalism, but... When's the last time he's done that? When's the last time the President of the United States had to the White House the great entrepreneurs of any given year? Not crony capitalists, not Democrat contributors dressed up as capitalists, but the great entrepreneurs, and presented them as an example to young people, to all of America, in fact to the world. When's the last time the President did that? When's the last time the President held a seminar on, because he holds these phony seminars all the time, actually shows up, gives a speech, walks out, and then everybody's mingling. But anyway, about the Constitution, the greatest governing document ever devised. When is the last time the President of the United States did that? When's the first time? Yes, he's very, very busy fundamentally transforming America, isn't he? I'll be right back. From Zero Hedge, which is a very good website. Every politician in America knows Social Security is a third rail. He says, with that in mind, I find it interesting to report that a very credible source is now predicting that Obama and Congress will take action over the next 24 months that will substantially undermine both the long-term and short-term health of Social Security. The legislative raid, he writes, on Social Security will certainly total in the hundreds of billions. It could top $1 trillion over the next 15 years. So who is this credible source? And just how is this raid going to happen? The source is the Congressional Budget Office. And what are they talking about? Well, the old age and survivors insurance and disability insurance are the two different pieces of Social Security. The old age and survivors insurance and disability insurance. Both have their own supposed trust funds. The old age and survivors insurance, that's supposed to last another 15 years or so. But disability insurance, remember we've talked about how that's grown so precipitously over the last few years? That runs completely dry in the first quarter of 2016. That fund, even on paper, is gone in 3 years. And under current law, the Social Security disability benefits under that supposed fund must be cut across the board by 30% on the day that fund, even on paper, is exhausted. Now, what do you think our wonderful politicians in Washington will do in 3 years when the Disability Insurance Trust Fund, quote unquote, and you and I know it's just paper transactions, but when that, even on the books, paper, runs out? What do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to cut benefits by 30%? No. Can they possibly raise payroll taxes enough to cover that? No. They're going to print money. Listen, I'm not in the prediction business. I know some of my brothers and sisters are. I'm in the education business. I'm in the informing business. All of this is going to come to pass. Not because I say so, but because the people who live it, breathe it, and calculate it say so. And they're right. I've looked at it. They're exactly right. You can't wish things away. Government is nothing more than a system, a structure set up by people. It's nothing more than a structure populated by politicians and bureaucrats. They don't have any magical abilities. They can't wish things away. They can't create utopia. And they're not going to do any of these things. And throughout human history, we've seen what happens when they try. Our society apparently wasn't good enough for these people. They couldn't leave well enough alone. Not even well enough. Spectacular enough alone. The greatest, freest society on the face of the earth wasn't great enough for these people because they had their own plans. They wanted to institute their own experiments. Oh, yes. The Marxist course. We know it's failed in the past, but it's only failed in the past because it wasn't done right. It wasn't instituted the way it needed to be instituted. More gradually, maybe faster. Less comprehensive, maybe more comprehensive. Whatever. It just wasn't done right. Now we'll do it right, you see. And what does Obama really do? And what are these Democrats and Republicans, what are they really doing? They're draining the resources that are created through those of us exercising liberty, working in the market system, who believe in private property rights and profits and wealth and capital creation. They take our money to fund their agenda, their experiments, their religion, and they waste it, and they destroy it.